So first things first, Paul, how are you?
Very good, hello.
Before we kind of venture into the music of the album, I'd like to start with the cover.
Yeah.
Which is one that your uncle made. Did you ask your uncle to make it?
I asked him, but already 3 years ago, and he took like items from my house to arrange it with, and it just got ready in that time, and also the album got ready, and so it was not intentionally that made for that.
Okay.
So I just was working with those titles, parts, blah blah blah, and then we had this, and then Parts of Life. It came somehow a little bit magic in the entire process this time, but yes, it's a very personal painting, and then when the album was ready and the music also so very personal, then it was just very fit.
So I want to take a couple of those parts of the cover and
Okay.
kind of talk.
Yeah,
about
let's
them
see.
with you.
Because some of them he only takes when he does. He takes only some things of you, and other things he come from him.
Okay, but the
Yeah.
first one I know you
Yeah.
that you have a meaning with it because it's the trumpet.
It's the trumpet, yes.
So I know you played the trumpet when you were younger.
Yeah.
What role does the trumpet play for your music now?
Actually, not a big one. It was more like also in the case in the way this painting was made. That is actually just a piece that could be also like a möbel, you know, like something
Sure,
was just
furniture.
there for its look. So, but then I realized I also have like trumpet sounds on the album. It's a difficult relation since I had to play the trumpet when I was young. I had to practice many hours. Many hours I didn't want to do it. So.
But if you think back, did it help you in your musical development in a way?
Hard to say, like, because like when we started techno, we turned away from all classical ways of like, we don't need notes, we just need industrial sounds, machine sounds. And yeah, over a long way back, melodies, harmonies came back to my music because I'm a very harmonic living guy. Even though when I was very young, I was always singing like a little song. I see it already on my 3-year-old daughter now.
Okay.
She also like always just sings something, even maybe just the last line said in the room. So
And well, you mentioned it, but there is a trumpet on the album, especially the opening track
Yeah.
has a trumpet on it. Was that intentional?
that it wasn't even intentional that this is the opening song. This I do later with my crazy system, finding the perfect order. And no, it was not at all like a turning to something specific.
Okay.
It was actually, I know that you would like to combine, but here there is not so much to combine, you know, especially like the cover art, you know, it's such a fantastic painting. He's such a great artist, even the greater artist than me. You need to paint 60 years to do that. You know? I don't know, there are still many people left who can paint like Altenmeister.
With that in mind, then, do you think, as a producer, because you've been making music a long time, do you think you get better every year?
I get better at every production. So I realized it very early, like after Berlin Calling, when I sat down again, like, yeah, like plus everything I knew before. That's why for the new album was so great. I found like old samples on like this big cassettes called SideQuest. It was a system where you save up those sounds, and it was for Roland's S750 sampler. We talked 20 years ago, and that was so almost impossible to get this data rescued. Even Roland couldn't do it. It was lying around with Roland for 1.5 years, and then Marcus, my manager, found a small rescue company in Berlin, and they were able to do that. And I was sitting there after 20 years with all those old sounds, which I couldn't do much back then because even envelope-wise, I just had this shitty 4-point filter envelope with everything I know and can do with sound. And you know, it's very, very sample-based how I make my music. It was fantastic. It was just rah.
And maybe part of this is the Back to the Future mixtape. How did that process affect this album?
Very much. It affects it actually in every aspect of that the Back to the Future thing. Also, as much time that it took, you know, compared to the album now, which I made this winter. the Back to the Future, that was a very time-consuming project, and much more important than those cassettes I made for it and the tour I played with it. It's what it actually did to me. You know, it like a, I don't know, like a big broom what cleaned out everything unnecessary. You know, I would even call it, you know, when I listen to the Seven album, also like so slow in tempo and stuff. You know, I don't know, like somehow even like my own very late Baroque and like Rococo. Too much thinking, too much anemic, and like in a way like old in a way. So Back to the Future cleaned out a lot of things and made me like think of like what it actually does it actually need. That's what I did before making this album. I was thinking a lot. You know, like after so many years, often you don't think this way, and then you continue just to produce the way you learned it and you are used to. And but it's vital sometimes to sit down and say, man, come on, how many years are doing this? What is a good dance track or techno or whatever it's called? What does it need? You know, not much. So. And that was a little bit also the process. Like stuff I would never, like 20 years ago, would just like, what are you thinking about music? Just sit down and press the buttons. Now it's more like sometimes you have to go on a point where you actually try to get an overview to what the fuck do you want to do actually, you know? And Berlin Calling gave, not Berlin Calling, Back to the Future gave very many answers to that.
So can you give me, this might be really difficult to answer, but what makes a good track then for you? Especially these days.
I don't know. I mean, if I could write it down, then I would write it down and sell those books to young kids. So it's different in every studio. In every studio of the world, it's like a different thing. What brings it, you know? Because there's somebody else sitting there. So
for this record in particular, you mentioned Back to the Future had a big impact. In between albums, you also became father.
Yeah.
So did that affect kind of how you worked and what came out?
Absolutely, it worked. Especially the kind I did like on the daily basis, how it worked. Like what I can say, this album definitely differently compared to all the other albums of mine are made on much earlier times of the day. You know, back then I often worked in the night or let's say evening. Many things were done, you know, I love that, you know, sun goes down, people come home from work, especially the time when I had my studio at home. It's just nice. Now I come, chilled all day, and now I work. But now with a child, you know, everything starts much earlier, and I learned how to do things in between. Back then I really didn't know, please no audio input, I need to concentrate, and just my own film there for hours and hours, and now I just really know how to make things in between. And even if it's 15 minutes I have to open my computer and do some music on there.
So, and you mentioned earlier on these parts, they aren't in sequence. So what was kind of the method of finding out the way to structure it?
At the end, I do this already for many years, I make like little paper cards, cardboard cards. I cut them out and I write down the song and characteristics. I often mark this with color. You know, if you would see it, it would not tell you much, but I see what it is. And then I spread them out on a table and I go there many days. It's like a month. Even though I know nowadays maybe 3 people do this and other people take their favorite songs and put them in their own playlist, but who is really dedicated to this album and wants the full Parts of Life experience should listen it into the order because it's an inner feeling. I had already an order and I sent it to my manager and said, hey, that's the one, you can go online with it. And then wait, because I have somehow felt that I need to go back to it. And then the moment came where I looked at it, I turned away and that's it. That's it. Untouched now. And this takes 1 month approximately, where I do nothing than that in the aftermath. And because it's important to me.
Because
I'm an album artist, so.
No, exactly, because something and this ties into that, something that I found was by calling them parts and not giving them names, you're almost forced to listen to the whole thing.
Yeah, it's also because I never liked it so much that, you know, you have when you work, your songs have some work titles in your computer. They are named somehow. And then when it's time to release, the big renaming starts, where you sit there with the English word book, or what? I just come off it. Haha, let's take that. So in this case, all of their songs are carrying Their actual working title had like a subfolder, and whenever I felt something and was not much produced aside of those 15 songs, then it got lifted up to that folder and got a part name. So it's actually those 15 parts is the music I made. There is not much waste of that. So like somehow.
And when you make this, do you have in mind kind of where it will be listened, who's going to listen to it, and how, in what way?
Like as a full album.
Yeah.
Yeah, very early. Like on a very not very early, but it's late in the process. But for other people, it might be early to already when you you work actually still on all songs and 3 still have to be made. Then already in mind seeing this again as an album. Obviously, I'm an album artist. I thought after 7 that was been the last one, because albums is not the form of releasing anymore. But somehow everything again went into form of album on the way of process.
That's an interesting thought, because earlier today I did an interview with some artists. They are going to release 2 tracks every month or something like that until the album is released. But so for you, why is it so important to still have that big body of work?
I don't know. Because it's the form of releasing, because it's also the where I like proudly can look into like a #1 position in German charts, and say like album #1, that's very great. To make a single #1, it's like another business. I have actually nothing to do with, and I don't want to have to do much to do with it.
Right.
But when it comes to release, we thought that before. Let's do it differently this time. Nobody buys albums anymore. That's what we said 3 years ago when 7 came. Next time we'll make we release 8 songs and then the rest. This time, and everything went again the way that we do it as we do it today, and it's again the same thing. It's album with a couple of pre-release, and the entire focus is on the album.
Then there's another thing on the cover that I wanted to talk to you about, which is kind of the fighter pilot helmet. And I've read in some German interview where you kind of
no, it's a jet fighter pilot, pilot's helmet.
Because I read somewhere in an interview in German, and my German isn't very good, but you kind of compared yourself with a Kampfpilote when you're on stage. Is that where it's from? Or?
I said that I'm like a jet fighter pilot on stage.
I read that somewhere. So
the thing is the way I talk. I definitely believe that maybe it would have been a day where I've said something like this. Let's say Formula One, like when it's called like me and my team, they say, but you're not really a team. You're employees. No, it's like a team. So like Formula One, they put the best for me there, and I have to go drive it.
But for instance, on this tour then that you're for Parts of Life, you're playing more intimate shows and
for the promo, especially for the contingents, Spotify, friends first, and fans first, and all this stuff. And we could have also said we don't do the tour at all. So it gave us some opportunities to make some people very happy. I mean, it's not the setup to actually practice good for the festival season, but that's what it is, and it's kind of fun. Because
with the album, you go back to your earlier days, or kind of in that mindset. So is this?
Yeah, I cannot go back to here. This is like today here, our last one at Shelter of those small, I think 9-stop promo tour, and then from I think Sunday it is already Sunday the 20th. The first of those big festivals where I have main slots, and I'm very looking forward to that too.
Because is your approach different from playing in these kinds of venues than playing those big festivals?
No, I feel actually I don't know how that developed, but because I grew up in those clubs kind of. But now after so many years of big stages, when I go back to here, I somehow developed a social anxiety when they stand so close, So, like it was back then when I had because of my live show, so I was always a little bit afraid of like people with their drinks and stuff like pouring it into the computer or the mixer or the outboard equipment. So I got very much released when the stages for me became actually so big that at least nobody can pour beer in your mixer, So, but here tonight, it's gonna get tight.
All right. Final question then, because you're playing Tomorrowland again this year, and you've played so many different places. And do you still have certain things you want to achieve in music?
Yeah, there's like, things like this album, you know, like also when I made it, I realized this is not you cannot do this every time. People said, yeah, after Berlin Calling, the next one and the over next one, they were not as good as the one. But when you want to have a career, I want to have a decade long career. So you release every 2 or 3 years. You cannot have outstanding albums every time. So you have an outstanding one, every good one, an okay one, and a good one again. And then after now 10 years comes like a breaker again, like one which you maybe just do every 10 years. And since I realized that, I even feel even much less pressure. Since I know it's impossible to, when you release long time, every 2 or 3 years an album, that every one of them is outstanding. So I will be in the future even okay, realize even the next one will be just okay. Then maybe you are a little bit unhappy with it, that's not better, but I definitely am more prepared to look at it as something what is maybe just how it is.
Well, the final question, and this just came up, but what is it like for you then that maybe a lot of that you release is compared to Berlin Calling, because that's what people know. What's that like for you? Do you?
I can understand that it's actually impossible to re-achieve that, since everyone listening to the album having also a scene of the movie in his mind.
Right.
So it's audio-visual pleasure and not just music. But I just recently listened to the Berlin Calling album again, and I can say Parts of Life is the best thing ever made. It is just the best one. It's like, just happened.
All right, on that end, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.